Today we are going to discuss. First, actually, I shall discuss what is international economics, and then we shall discuss some basic concepts that will be useful to understand all other things that we shall discuss in other classes. Uh, our focus will be on the concept, like the overview of the subject matters that is covered in the international economics, and then we shall discuss how is the exchange rate determined, and then we shall also discuss the balance of payment, because these are three important things one should understand uh, before we get into all other discussions of international economics. Now, coming to international economics subject, is like we have in economics so many other subjects like public finance, then macro, micro, and so on. And one of them is this international economics. In international economics, we basically discuss the transactions that happen through borders, or basically beyond the borders, you can say, between the border, between different countries. So all the transactions that happens between different countries are discussed in international economics. No, it looks very simple. Now, when I say the fact, the transactions that happens between countries, it includes everything. It includes everything. When I say it includes the exchange of the commodities and the factors of production. But all the factors of production cannot be traded, so it includes only limited factors. Okay, so commodities are very clear that we export commodities and we import commodities. So that is studied how this trade happens. But other than that also, we trade many other things like labor, okay? How labor go to other country and work, and similarly the capital, okay? It is about foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment. So that's why I told that it basically international economics tries to cover the transactions that happens between different countries, and it includes the commodities, the services, it includes the flow of labor, it includes the flow of the capital, it includes also the when we say capital, the long term and the short term, that is foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investment. So these are actually some of the things that are discussed. Then, other than that, we also discuss the international monetary system. Okay? So that's how usually people divide all the subjects of international economics into two components. One is, say, we call pure theory of international trade, and other is monetary theory of international trade. And in pure theory of international trade, we look at the pure trade without looking at monetary aspect. Okay? Like how the commodities are traded between different countries, how foreign direct investment comes to one country or the other, okay, what factor determines all these things. So all those things are discussed in the pure theory. But in monetary theory of international trade, we discuss all the monetary aspects like foreign exchange rate and how the exchange rate determines your export and import. All money matter related issues are discussed in monetary theory of international trade. So now to give a quick overview of almost everything, little bit I'll cover little bit of everything. So coming to the foreign trade, so that the first component that is included in international economics will be the foreign trade, okay, and the trade of the goods and services. When you say goods and services, you must be, I don't know whether you have ever thought or not. Now, the student of economics, anybody would start thinking why only a specific commodities are traded between countries. Why do we export this commodity, and why do we import a particular commodity from other country? Okay, there must be some economic rationale behind it. So for that, many economists have given different theories, okay, that why some nations export certain goods and why some nations import certain goods. Now, I will ask you actually this question to all of you. Now, please tell me, now what is your understanding on this? That why India exports a few commodities and why it imports certain commodities. Similarly, America exports certain commodities and America imports certain commodities. Now, and please answer me this question. See, some economists, or you can say, no, anyone can start thinking that why some nations trade certain things and not the other. So if you look at that, then the classical economists basically argued that it is the price advantage. Okay? Price advantage determines the trade. If some countries can sell some products at a lower price, no, if the price of a commodity is lower in a particular country, then this commodity can be sold to the entire world because this is the cheapest product available in this country. So the entire world would like to buy the cheapest product. That is one. And then if you are producing a commodity at a low price, then you export it. And if you are producing it at a very high rate, instead of doing production in your country, you import that commodity because you get it cheaper. So you can save a lot of money. Okay? And those resources can be diverted, particularly the labor that were working in that expensive industry, now can switch over to other. Okay? And then the consumers will have a lot of surplus. So that was one argument, okay, that it is the absolute price differences, basically whichever country is producing the commodity at the least cost will export that commodity, and if it is expensive in your country, you import that. And this cost basically used to be determined by initially only the labor cost, okay, nothing else. That was the assumption. Later on, people realized that no, it is again not answering all the questions, because some nations, no, you'll find no, all the commodities are cheaper in a particular country, but still they don't export all that, and similarly they don't import all that commodity. Even if all the commodities are cheaper, they still export and they still import. So then people again started thinking, okay, and then some economists told that it is the comparative advantage. Okay? So it need not necessarily be an absolute price advantage, rather it should be the comparative advantage. Okay, now when we say comparative advantage, how to explain this? Now let me give an explanation. In fact, you will find some people are more efficient in everything, okay, than others. Okay? So that means the trade should not happen here. The person who is efficient in everything, he or she should produce everything. Why he should or she should import or buy things from others? But that doesn't happen. Okay? Even if somebody is efficient, we still buy certain commodities, and we still sell some commodities. And the example usually the teachers give in the classroom is the story of a doctor, okay? And that is a lady doctor. Now the lady doctor is efficient in everything. Okay? She is very good at say the treatment, and she knows even music, and so that she can play music, she can even sing. And when she does cooking, she does the best cooking, the best food she can prepare. Similarly, cleaning houses, everything she does perfect. Okay? So she is most efficient in everything. But if the lady doctor tries to do everything, she cannot focus on her treatment. Okay? Now, if she focuses her time, like if she gives maximum time for the treatment, she can earn maximum money. Okay, and in exchange, she can appoint a person to do all other things, or one person or many people basically to do all other things. Okay? So suppose the domestic help, now who is coming to say cook food or do other things at home is inefficient in everything. If there will be a competition of cooking between the doctor and the domestic help, then the domestic help will fail, okay? Because he or she doesn't know actually how to cook food as compared to the lady doctor. But the lady doctor never minds because she understands that if she doesn't focus on treatment, she will earn less money. So better to give all the time to the treatment and let the cook, the domestic help at least cook food. Okay. Now, if you leave the domestic help to do the treatment, what will happen? Everyone will die. Okay, so that is not possible. So here we are looking at the comparative advantage. Okay, now you can compare the comparative advantage and comparative disadvantage. Now, in case of lady doctor, she is definitely best at everything. Okay, but if you compare between the domestic help and the lady doctor, the domestic help will have less comparative disadvantage in case of cooking, and he will have maximum comparative disadvantage in treatment. The domestic help cannot actually do any treatment at all actually. So he has the least disadvantage in cooking, and he has maximum disadvantage in doing the treatment. So here, we can still find a reason to have trade. Okay, now the doctor is focusing on the issue where she has maximum advantage, and the domestic help is focusing on where she has least disadvantage. Even if you are comparing in all indicators, doctor will pass everywhere and the domestic help will fail everywhere. But here we are using the word comparative disadvantage and comparative advantage, and that actually facilitates the trade. So if you know this is lady doctor's case, but then you can just take it to any country case. So you find some countries are really good at everything, okay? And that so ideally they should produce everything, and they should not trade with any other countries. But that doesn't happen. They still import certain goods, and this happens because of this comparative disadvantage. Some countries have less comparative disadvantage in certain things, and that's how they focus, they specialize in the production of that commodity, and they export that, and they import the other commodity wherever they have maximum comparative disadvantage. Now, in case of domestic help, the domestic help is buying the healthcare from the doctor, and he is focusing on the cooking where he has minimum disadvantage or the least amount of disadvantage he has. But everywhere the domestic help has disadvantage. So that is actually second type of theories that came for explaining the international trade. Then economists started moving away from the labor cost. They included other costs like technology, the capital cost, and so on. That's how many theories are explained in terms of opportunity cost. I don't know whether you remember opportunity cost. I think we had discussed this concept probably before this semester. Does anyone remember what is opportunity cost? Now let me ask Mariam. What is his name? Mariam Santa. So would you tell what is opportunity cost? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
So do you remember what is opportunity cost? I think we had discussed in the last term. Some class, I think I have discussed what is opportunity cost. Do you remember?
Uh, s- Not exactly, sir, but I think maybe the cost we choose in terms of alternatives.
Alternatives. No, you are very close to the point. Let us listen from somebody else. Anybody else would like to tell?
Sir, sir, opportunity cost can be defined as the benefit one could have enjoyed if he or she would have chosen another alternative choice.
Yeah. In simple terms, we say in economics that this is the next best alternative. You
Yes,
are
sir.
doing something. If you don't do this, what else will you do? So that is your opportunity cost. Okay. So international trade theories initially were explained in terms of labor cost, and later on these were discussed in terms of opportunity cost, and then people started telling basically the factor endowment theory. What is factor endowment theory? The theory basically says that a nation will focus in the production and export of a particular commodity which is intensive in the factor in which it is richly endowed with. Now, to put it simple, suppose a country has more labor, suppose country A has more labor and country B has more capital. So, the country A should produce the commodities which are labor intensive in nature and it should export the labor intensive products. Country B is rich in capital resource and that's why it should produce the commodities that uses more capital. And now the trade should happen. So somebody is focusing on labor intensive products, somebody is focusing on capital intensive products. So you can export that product and get the other commodity from other country. So that is factor endowment theory. And that is also quite looks quite clear also that some countries have more natural resources, some countries have more like for example petrol, some countries have more coal, some countries have more mineral sources. They would produce no metals and or value-added products, and they can export such products to other countries, and they can import other things from other countries. So this also looked quite convincing. Then again, trade theories are, again were not no, that is not the end of the story. People again are doing now also people are doing research, and they are now finding out that no your distance could be a factor. Okay, now how distance is a factor? That look at India itself. Now suppose India produces some goods, but then it is produced in a particular location. Say for example, in South India, suppose there are some industries. Suppose cement industry. Now, suppose cement industry exists only in Kerala, okay, and it doesn't exist in North. Say for example, and the reason could be that there are no natural resources which is used, or the raw materials which are used for cement production, so it cannot be produced in Punjab. Okay, now in that case, instead of producing cement in Kerala and transporting it to Punjab or Jammu and Kashmir, it would be wise for the states in the north to import that cement from Pakistan, assuming that we have all good relations. Okay? And in fact, for many years we have done that. Okay? And so the example that I'm giving is a realistic one. Okay? So many products that is used in the northern part, and if we do not produce in sufficient quantity, instead of producing that in the other part, better you import this. Okay, here now a new concept emerges that in the beginning, the trade theorists basically argued that all the trades happen only inter-industry trade. That you produce one commodity and you don't import that commodity, rather you import other commodities. That means if you are exporting car, you don't import car, you only export cars and you import other things. You would importing trucks or you would be importing say jewelries, but then you don't at least import the cars. So that was all initial theories we were talking about inter-industry trade. But then many people observe that no, it is not the inter-industry trade, it is also intra-industry trade that takes place. That means some countries export the, say, the car example that I was telling, say India exports cars and it also imports cars. Okay? So that means it, intra-industry trade takes place and it happens throughout the country. In fact, even if the distance is far away, still this happens because say if you look at the car parts, okay, then some components would be produced in some other country. So look at laptop. Okay, the laptops are the manufacturing part happens in China, but the assembling happens in India. Similarly, the hardware comes from China, but the software comes from India. So within the same industry, trade can also take place, and there are many reasons to it. So, like that, there are various theories, okay, and these theories are basically try to explain why trade takes place between countries and how to explain this. Okay? So, we are not getting into those theories in details, but in a nutshell, these are basically the pure theory of international trade. And then comes the other part, okay, that is the factors of production, like how the capital flows from one country to the other, And then when we get into the monetary theory of international trade, we try to discuss all other things like how the exchange rate is determined, how the exchange rate affects the export and import, and similarly the monetary system, okay, how the exchange rate is determined. In fact, the trade relations also are discussed. Say, for example, why whether WTO is better than say SARC. Okay? Now, why I am giving such an example that whether WTO is better than SARC, that means we're asking this question whether free trade around the world is better than free trade in a particular region. Because when we say SARC, I hope all of you know SARC.
Yes,
What
sir.
is
Yes,
SARC?
sir. South
Yes, sir.
Asian Association for
South
For
regional
regional cooperation.
cooperation.
Regional Cooperation, and how many member countries are there?
Sir, eight members.
Yeah, eight. The latest one is eight or seven. Maldives
Sir,
in
sir,
yes,
eight,
eight,
sir.
eight. So including Maldives. So basically, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, then is Myanmar included? No, Myanmar is not included here.
No, sir.
Sri
Then
Lanka.
Maldives,
Yes,
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
Maldives and Sri Lanka. Yes. So these are the countries of SARC. Okay. So why I gave this example? Purposefully, I gave this example because in case of WTO, there is an argument that WTO would be the first best preference. That if you believe in the trade theories, the trade theories basically say that if every nation specializes in its comparative advantage industry and tries to export that commodity to the world, then the welfare of the world will be maximized. Okay, because the resources will be used in the most efficient manner. Okay, because wherever you are most efficient, you are producing that, and wherever you are least inefficient, you are producing that. Either you are least inefficient in particular commodity, or you are in the most efficient. So that's how the trade takes place between two parties. So that way, the resources of the world will be used in the most efficient manner, and that's how the welfare of the world will be maximized. So that is basically the philosophy behind the WTO, that you allow free trade to happen around the world. There should be no trade barriers, and then only the world welfare can be maximized because the resources are used in the most efficient manner. But in reality, does that happen? What is your answer? Does free trade take place around the world?
No, sir.
No, it doesn't happen.
No, sir.
No. So why it doesn't happen? What are the reasons behind it? Why the
There is
free
a
trade doesn't
there
take
is a
place?
practice of
Everyone has their own
groupism, sir.
interest, sir.
Yes. Okay, one person. So Purnachandra is
Sir,
saying something.
just now you are talking about the SARC and all. Means a kind of a groupism is there, so that's why
Okay.
particular country is very much interested towards is means group states like. So maybe
Okay.
that is one reason.
Okay. So one would be regionalism, or no, one would be definitely regionalism. But there are, in fact, many other factors. In fact, within WTO, see WTO. Have you ever visited the WTO website? Has anyone visited ever WTO website?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you visit WTO website, the first article of the WTO says that it basically aims to promote free trade in the world. Okay. However, if you get into other clauses of WTO, it also says that there are certain cases or circumstances in which the countries can impose restrictions on the free trade. Now, what are those exceptions? There are in fact many. Okay. One is your environmental clause. Okay. There comes your sanitary and phytosanitary conditions. If you believe that some nation is not exporting hygiene products, that may affect your biodiversity, okay, and so you can put a ban on that. And you would remember Indian Alphonso mango being banned by Europe and America, and the reason was sanitary and phytosanitary conditions. Similarly, Indian exporters are not, for that reason, ODE exporters are not able to capture the world market in fishery products, and be it dry fish or the best tiger prawns that we produce. and the reason is sanitary and phytosanitary conditions. The other would be the child labor. That if you are producing certain goods using child labor, countries can stop this because they don't want to encourage child labor. The other reason could be your infant industry argument, that you feel that your industries are infant, they are they cannot compete with other countries. You want to protect them. That's okay. Then you can also use your strategic requirements, okay? Your food safety requirements. Okay? In fact, this food safety requirements we should also understand, because in fact now that farmers protest is going on, this is somewhat related to this, that uh, India is having FCI for ensuring food security of every household, every individual in this country. But as per the WTO rules, no country can have intervention in the market prices. WTO believes that prices should be determined by the market forces. Demand and supply forces should determine the prices.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah, you are trying to say something, Satyananda? Suddenly?
Sir, sir, ଏ ଯୋଉ free trade କଥା ଆମେ କଥା ହଉଛେ, sir, WTO free trade ପାଇଁ encourage ପାଇଁ ତାର main objective ନା gradual free trade କରିବା ପାଇଁ?
It is actually free trade only. No, the
Okay.
gradual thing is
Sir, because free trade will normally free trade will hand undue advantage to developed countries, and
yes.
yes, there will be also loss of employment and jobs in developing countries.
That is true,
Yes, sir.
but that's what I'm telling. But the core objective of WTO is to promote free trade. But it has also given exceptions that no countries can still protect their industries under these arguments. That's what I am explaining. Okay, say for example, now India put a ban on China, okay, Chinese products. Why? Because now it use the strategic requirements. So you cannot actually just ban somebody's importable products, because that country can go to WTO dispute settlement tribunal and lodge a complaint against one particular country. Okay, so if you are putting a ban, no, then you have to give the justification, and the justifications I actually told. Okay, that and I was coming to that actually FCA, that no, WTO says that no country can put a blanket ban on the export. Okay, so coming to the food security, that as per the WTO required agreements, countries cannot determine the prices of certain commodities and rice, even petrol for that reason also. So we have deregulated petrol prices. So also the argument of WTO would be that India should free the agriculture commodities price determination to the market. And similarly, government cannot procure such a huge quantity because that affects the market prices. Okay? So WTO argument has been that government should not do all these things; it should leave it to the market. And in fact, that is also one of the reasons behind such farm reforms that we have brought. Okay? That for a long time India was defending itself, saying that no, we have so many people who are living in hunger, we cannot allow that. So that's why we are procuring this food and we are ensuring food security. So that's how India has been doing that, and it is giving MSP, minimum support price. Minimum support price means it is an administered price. Government market is not determining. Government is determining this artificially. So there are provisions. In fact, remember, if you again remember the genesis of the WTO, it was formed in 1995. But before that, we had the Uruguay round of debates and discussions. It started from 1985. It took actually more than 10 years intensive discussion. But then the process had started from GATT, okay, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. That was done in 1945. Okay, so from GATT to WTO and then the Uruguay round of discussions, it took so much of time to debate and discuss, to bring necessary reforms in the countries. And once you become a member of WTO, you are accepting the terms and conditions that you will open your borders to the traders of other countries, okay, so that they can freely sell their product in your country. And okay, so I was telling that whether WTO is better than the regional agreements. So the first option, the first best option would be that the free trade takes place around the world. And because there is a reason behind it, because the trade theory says that the free trade will maximize the welfare of the world because the resources will be used in the most efficient manner. Okay, and then in reality that doesn't happen. So if that doesn't happen, what do we do it? In economics, we have two theories called theory of first best and theory of second best. Now, theory of first best says that if certain assumptions are fulfilled, then you can achieve the best outcome, which would be, say, in case of WTO, if all countries promote free trade, then you can maximize the welfare of all nations. But that doesn't happen in reality. So in that case, if you try to repair the assumptions that are those are not getting fulfilled, then you are wasting your time. Okay, so theory of second best says that now instead of trying to repair the assumptions that those are fulfilled, you try to withdraw all other assumptions which are also fulfilled. Then you will achieve the second best. So that means instead of trying to persuade some countries spending resources for that, don't do that. Rather, you also start imposing restrictions. Okay, and you have your trade only in a limited region. So that is your the regional trade agreements. Okay, regional trade agreements, and that's how we have European Union, we have SAARC, we have SAPTA, we have NAFTA, we have ASEAN, and so on. Okay? In different parts of the world, we have different regional agreements. So there are theories behind it also, that whether these regional trade agreements are better than the free trade that happens around the world. The theory of first best, theory of second best, and all those things theories are basically discussed here. And now the evolution of the European Union, basically how it evolves. Okay, say European Union would be probably the final form, or the United States of America would be even the ultimate goal. See, and that is also basically an economic agreement. 50 states of America, they came together, they adopted that, they agreed that we all will have the same fiscal policy, the same monetary policy, and so on. But in the European Union case, they accepted only a common monetary policy, but they did not adopt common fiscal authority. They had a European Union, they had a European bank, European Central Bank, and all that. But they have never accepted a common fiscal authority, just like the finance minister of one country for all. That has not happened. But there is this European Central Bank, and which is basically managing the euro currency. So those are basically discussed in those international trade theories. What are the economic implications of this? And then comes again international monetary system. Then I don't know whether you have ever thought this. Why dollar is the most dominant currency at present? Why? See, for some time the pound was the dominant currency. Now, how could dollar become a dominant currency? Now, when you do the trade with other countries, why dollar is accepted, why rupee is not accepted, or why for that reason no other countries currency is accepted? So that is called international monetary system. Okay? And in international monetary system, we discuss the theories starting from the gold standard to the Bretton Woods system, okay? And then again how the Bretton Woods system collapsed, okay? And then how from gold standard to gold parity, and or how we are moving from, say, gold standard to pound dominance and then to dollar dominance. And now new currencies are coming up. Basically, we can say the basket of currencies. You see now people are accepting euro, people are accepting dollar, people are accepting Japanese yen. Even for that reason, we are accepting Chinese currency. What is the Chinese currency? Anybody will tell?
Sir, MNB.
Renminbi, okay,
Yes, sir.
or
Yes.
yuan. They have,
Yes.
just like we say rupee and the paisa, they have their renminbi and Chinese yuan. Okay, which one is the larger unit and which one is smaller unit?
Sir, yuan is the larger unit,
And renminbi is the smaller unit.
smaller unit.
So we discussed that actually in international, I was telling that pure theory of international trade and monetary theory of international trade. In monetary theory, we discuss all these things. Okay. Yeah, so that's how international trade theory covers all these things. We are not getting into all theories in details, okay? And these are basically the basic concepts. Okay? And then we shall move to other things. If anybody has any
Yes,
question
sir.
or comments,
Sir, yes,
yes.
sir. Sir, sir, you were discussing about the WTO. Sir, can you tell a bit more about the amber box
Okay,
and
green
the
box,
green
amber
box?
box, and blue box. Yes. Okay. Basically, it talks about the agriculture subsidies. Okay. Green box basically includes the subsidies that are permissible under WTO rules and regulations. So, in fact, no. If you look at those subsidies, it says that the subsidies which are not directly affecting the market prices or the market forces are allowed. Okay, and such example would be that suppose government wants to now suppose in India we have launched a air conditioned train which will transport the commodities from one part to the other, or say suppose government wants to create cold storage chains. Okay, so these are not directly affecting the market prices. Okay, these are indirectly definitely affecting. So these subsidies are permissible. Now government wants to do irrigation facilities. That is permissible. Okay, but the subsidies that are directly affecting the commodity prices are not permissible, such as MSP. Okay, so MSP would be coming under the okay, green, amber, and blue, right? Green,
Yes,
amber, and
sir.
blue.
Yes, sir.
So this will come under the blue box. Okay, that this subsidy is not permissible. Okay, because this is directly affecting the prices. And in case of the blue box, this is somewhat in between. Okay, that for some time you can continue this subsidy, and over a long period of time you can withdraw. Okay, so that is basically the idea. Okay, now what are the all subsidies? I gave some examples, but the list could be many. But you should remember the philosophy that green box talks about the subsidies which are not directly affecting but indirectly affecting. And in fact, if you follow the WTO negotiation, different rounds of negotiation, particularly the Cancun round, which was most controversial and that was related to agriculture, there the argument was that see, developed countries have been arguing that India and other developing nations should open up their agriculture market for the advanced countries export, particularly China. I don't know whether you remember or not. There was a year, I think it would be probably NDA one time, when the chicken packets from America were available in India. Okay, and for some time, even there was a lot of opposition from the country within the country that if chicken starts coming from America to India, then Indian poultry farm will simply vanish, okay? And they cannot compete with America because they give huge amount of subsidy. So how the agriculture debates and discussion have been very controversial. The reason is this, that developing nations argue that the amount of subsidy that America gives, developing nations cannot give, and those subsidies are huge, and that's how American producers can compete in the international market. Although those are not direct subsidy. In fact, your export subsidy would be also coming under the blue box, because suppose you tell some farmer that okay, you export at a low price. Now, if you make a loss, government will recover that part. Okay, so basically, you are promoting dumping, okay, in other countries. So that is again not permissible. But blue boxes, I told again that such examples that if you are creating infrastructure which requires millions or billions of dollars, rupees, or in India it would be lakhs of rupees. Developing countries are not doing that. You see, if you look at the irrigation facilities in India, the cold storage, the government is withdrawing from everything almost. Irrigation is not increasing at all in India. Similarly, cold storage, now government is trying to subsidize the private sector, and private sector never comes forward to do investment in the cold storage. That's the story of Odisha and many other states. Developed world is basically giving a lot of subsidy for which their commodity prices are very low. On the other hand, developing nations are arguing that okay, we are inefficient, that's okay, but we cannot give the amount of subsidy that you give. So our product prices are very high, but still we want to protect our industry. Otherwise, our farmers will die. Okay, so farmer safety actually becomes a major issue for the developing nations, and that's how agriculture negotiations have never come into a conclusion, and that debate still remains. Okay. Did I clarify your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question or anything?
Yes, sir. Sir, what is that background and story behind George Soros and I mean how he broke into Bank of England? I mean regarding that exchange rate and like how the journey of paper gold to then USD dollar, then better
Okay.
in comparison all.
Okay,
Yeah.
so basically, I was telling basically the gold standard, then the dominance of pound, and then the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, okay, or the dominance of the dollar actually went away, and then now we're talking about basket of currencies. Now, let me tell quickly. See, gold standard was again not sustainable because you have to keep the exact amount of gold for which you are printing currencies. Suppose you are printing say 100 lakh crore currencies, you have to store that much of gold in your reserve. Okay? That was gold standard. Okay? So anyone can demand equal amount of gold. Either you take paper note or you take the gold. So many countries would prefer gold basically. So virtually gold used to be exported. Suppose you are exporting some commodities, so in exchange, instead of getting foreign currency, you get equal value of gold. Okay, that's how we remember actually our marine trade with other countries. They say that our people used to go to Java, Sumatra, Borneo, and all that, Indonesia, and they used to come with a lot of gold. Okay? And or all other commodities you can always bring. If you export and in exchange either you get commodities as an import equal value or you get gold. Some people would prefer still gold. So that is gold standard system, and it required huge amount of gold, and then again transportation cost of transporting gold had additional cost. So people tried actually again withdrawing from that. Then we are going towards a system of dominance of pound. Pound was the currency which was only currency available in the international market, which had gold standard. That means they used to keep equal amount of gold reserve in their country, and if any country asks for that, they can give. Okay, that's how the pound dominate. And then for a long time, that since British government was ruling all over the world, so the currency dominance also continued for quite long, and that continued say up to maximum First World War or between mid time of First World War and Second World War. Now, after the Second World War, the world order has completely changed. Okay, now, the dominance of America comes there. Now, after the Second World War, we gave birth to two Bretton Woods institutions. One is IMF and other is IBRD, that is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is popularly known as World Bank. Now, these twin Bretton Woods institutions, were basically, more or less, you can say the terms and conditions were determined by America. Okay? That if you see in the IMF, okay, it is okay. If you look at the special drawing rights, then America probably would have because it had given the maximum contribution. Okay, during that time, it had enough resources. That's why it had dominance. That's okay. We can understand. Similarly, in the World Bank, for reconstruction of the world ravaged countries, because after the Second World War, many countries were ravaged by the war, and so it needed reconstruction. That's how IBRD was created, and it served the purpose. Then the Cold War came, and then to again prove your dominance, America continued its contribution both in IBRD and in IMF. So, okay, and that is one reason, and then other reason is that when the pound also lost the connection with gold, they also could not maintain this gold standard for a long time. So they ultimately went for a gold parity system. What is gold parity system? That a part of the currency can be converted into gold. Suppose you are doing trade for say 100 rupees. Now for 100 rupees you cannot get gold equal amount, but every dollar will have some amount of gold. So if you need, you can definitely get gold, but not equal amount. A part of that. That's called gold parity. Okay, so that how America basically announced that for one pound will give this ounce of gold. I don't remember exactly the amount, but a certain amount actually will be linked to that. And so that's how the trust with Dollar now increased.
It was, I think, a 35 ounce, sir.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's what I don't remember exactly now. So it actually had announced, and then what happens now? America became the dominant currency, and in fact, like even how also UK lost, the pound lost its. See, when your currency is accepted by all the countries in the world, you tend to import commodities from all over the world, because your currency can be used to import commodities. So that's why America also did the same thing. Okay? America could import many of the commodities from many other countries, and you may also ask, why actually America needs to import, because it is superpower, it can produce everything. Why it imports? See, in America, America is the immigrant country. All people from all over the world live there. So when Indians live there, they would demand Indian products. Okay, and so Indian products have to be exported there. They will wear Indian sari, they will eat Indian food. So you have to export Indian products there. That means that becomes import of it. Similarly, Chinese people were there, so China would again export commodities to them. So that's how the import of that country actually continued to increase. Now, when your import increases, that means your currency is available with other countries. Okay? Now, suppose India is having huge amount of dollar. Now, it suppose it goes to USA and asks that, and the Federal Reserve Bank, that you give me this much of gold. Then will it be possible for the Federal Reserve Bank to give this much gold? It will not be possible. Okay, and this exactly happened that in 1974, okay, and in mid 70s particularly, 74 actually was the exact year also. So the Federal Reserve Bank started saying no to convert this dollar into gold. Okay, and so that was basically that turning point, and that we call as that dominance of dollar was also coming to an end. Okay, and that was because actually they could not give gold. Just like pound also lost because they could not give gold, because all the trades were happening through pound, and then when they imported a lot of commodities, they could not give gold to other countries. Similar, America also faced the same situation, and during this time, the other countries are becoming also equal powerful. Okay? Like say Japan, then European Union is gradually taking shape, and by early 2000, euro currency has been launched. Okay? And since there are again big countries, big rich nations are coming together, euro currency actually is getting dominance. Okay? And although still the dollar dominance still remains, because its contribution in IMF and World Bank is still the highest. They have the maximum special drawing right. They have the maximum voting powers. Okay, so their voice is heard, and that's why India or many developing nations are demanding for reforms within IBRD and World Bank. No, see, we are talking about UN, okay, that how India can become a permanent member of the General Assembly, how it can obtain veto power. It is not only talking about UN, it is also talking about the changing the international order in the international monetary system. Okay, and why Indian currency should not be accepted. Of course, again, the good news that now in Asian countries, some countries, particularly the Middle East nations, are willing to accept Indian rupee. But in Europe and America, still Indian rupee has not been accepted. Okay? So that is the reason actually. Okay, so that's how things have changed. Actually, that from gold standard to the dominance of pound to dominance of dollar. Now it is a basket of currency. Now, so earlier, okay, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
It showed me that your internet connection got disconnected. Okay, so now in the international arena, the discussion is going on that yes, in the IMF and World Bank also we should have, and India is willing to contribute huge amount to the reserve, IMF reserve, so that it can have more SDR and it can have more voting power. And again, for your information, you must be aware also that after 1991, borrowing from IMF, India has never borrowed from IMF because we never had a balance payment crisis after 1991. Okay, so that's how now India is trying to exercise its influence in IMF and all, but somehow that is actually not happening. Okay.